What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are going to take our final look at the Great League for this season of the GamePress Go Battle League Gauntlet. Now, if you're not already familiar with the GamePress Go Battle League Gauntlet, I explain it in some of my previous videos and in the infographic, which you can find a link to in the video description. But today is going to be the last battle in the Great League, which means at the end of this video, somebody is going to get eliminated from this season. And I don't want to tease it too much here, but a lot of the guys are really excited about the Ultra League content that we have coming up. A few of them have said, just skip the Great League, let's get right to the Ultra League, because they really want me to show off these battles. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, because the Ultra League is going to be a lot of chaos. A lot of players brought some really spicy teams, but before we get to that, we got to round out the Great League here and decide who is not making it on to the next round. Before we get into that, though, we are going to look at some of Yourcalcprof's battles here. So first off, Yourcalcprof leading with Shiftry is going to be up against T-Forgery's Alolan Raichu. So T-Forgery is going to switch that Alolan Raichu out into Vigoroth, which is going to prompt a switch into Deoxys from Yourcalcprof. This is a pretty good switch. Both of his other two Pokemon are weak to counter, where Deoxys-Defense form gets to resist it. So Deoxys-Defense form should be able to take down this Vigoroth. It's dealing super effective damage back to it. So this is a pretty straightforward switch here, and when he goes for this Thunderbolt, Tyler is not even going to shield, and the Vigoroth doesn't quite go down, but it will go down with another counter or two. So then we see T-Forgery switch back into the Alolan Raichu. Deoxys is going to build up to a Rock Slide despite counter being resisted. This Rock Slide still hits Alolan Raichu for a decent chunk. So T-Forgery then farms it down with the Alolan Raichu, which makes Yourcalcprof bring the Shiftry back out. We're now going to see a Wild Charge, which is going to get a shield from this Shiftry, and then Shiftry is immediately going to fire back with a Leaf Blade, which Alolan Raichu will also shield before following up with another Wild Charge. So this will get Yourcalcprof's second shield here, and then T-Forgery is going to switch into Umbreon, and Yourcalcprof switches into Registeel, now down a shield. So he's got to take all of these foul plays, and I'm not sure if he's going to bait with a Flash Cannon or just go right for the Focus Blast, but he goes right for it, and Tyler is not going to shield here. So that Focus Blast is going to deal a lot of damage. T-Forgery builds up a little bit of excess energy before foul playing, but this Registeel still has a lot of health left. Now Registeel can comfortably just go for the Flash Cannon, but it's going to eat one more foul play on the way out here. Or before the Umbreon leaves, I should say. So Yourcalcprof builds up a little bit of excess energy here. That's going to make things really tough for the Alolan Raichu, but the Umbreon goes down, and then we see Yourcalc switch back into Shiftry. He's going to farm his energy and not even worry about Tyler's last shield. He could have thrown a Leaf Blade there, and he probably even could have thrown two Leaf Blades, but he just went for the Snarl down. Yeah, let's just take down the Alolan Raichu and not even worry about T-Forgery's shield. Next, we're going to look at Yourcalcprof's game against Manaholics, and Manaholics is leading with Umbreon with two counter users in the back. Talked about this a little bit when I played Manaholics, but those counter users are both pretty scary for the Shiftry and the Registeel. The Shiftry lines up okay against Umbreon, so Mana is also going to switch into Vigoroth, which will prompt a similar Deoxys switch from Yourcalcprof, just like we saw in his game against T-Forgery. So both of these games playing out pretty similarly here, though with similar teams even too. A switch to Vigoroth, but this time we also have a Deoxys in the back for Manaholics. So I imagine that this is going to play out pretty similarly. Yeah, there's no shields needed for Vigoroth, and Deoxys gets to do a little counter farming down. From here, we will see Umbreon come back in, actually, despite Umbreon being weak to this counter damage. So your Yourcalcprof is going for some beefy Thunderbolts, and they are going to land, but Umbreon gets to deal super effective damage back to Deoxys, which is why Manaholics brought it in. And when Manaholics goes for the Snarl here, Yourcalc says, you know what, my guy is weak enough anyways, that's fine, you can have it. So then we see Shiftry come back out, and it can immediately launch into a Leaf Blade, and these Leaf Blades are pretty strong even for a bulky boy like Umbreon. Now we see Yourcalcprof switch into his Registeel to eat this last resort, and that is huge. A bunch of wasted energy from Umbreon on the side of Manaholics there, and then we see Manaholics switch to Deoxys-Defense form. So Umbreon has to use its more expensive move because Shiftry can resist Foul Play, and because of that, the Registeel was able to come in and just get it perfectly there. Registeel is going to take a Thunderbolt, but it will be able to get to another Flash Cannon, and then I imagine we will see the Registeel get counter farmed down. But this Deoxys should die pretty quickly. The Shiftry will have to use one of its shields on this Rock Slide. I have to imagine that is going to come out here. Yeah, there we go. So there is a shield on the Rock Slide, but the Leaf Blades are going to be able to hit very hard. So Manaholics only has one shield. He's got to figure out what to save. Going to throw away that Umbreon. And because both players still have a shield here, they both actually decide to do the same thing, and that is use fast moves only. So if either one of them decide to use a charge move, it's just going to get shielded, and then their opponent gains an additional fast move. So both of these opponents decide to try to end the match using just fast moves, and because we do that, Shiftry is able to take it down because the Deoxys does not have that much health remaining, but it was a super close game, and if either one of them had used a charge move, more importantly, if Yourcalcprof had used a charge move, he might have lost because that would have been one additional counter's worth of damage on his fragile Shiftry. Next, we're going to look at Yourcalcprof's match up against Lorma, who is also leading with this Umbreon. Now, I think that Shiftry is definitely favored in this matchup. It has the Leaf Blade, which is just a cheaper move, and will still hit this Umbreon pretty hard here. So we're going to see Yourcalcprof use a Leaf Blade, and then he's actually going to switch out into Deoxys-Defense form. Now this is a pretty curious switch. He will have to shield at least one of these foul plays here because they do hit pretty hard, even though Umbreon is a bulky Pokemon. That Umbreon already had a lot of energy too. So Deoxys is going to take that second one and then go for a Thunderbolt. And Deoxys isn't totally out of position in this matchup. It is able to deal a lot of damage with counter as its fast move, and you can see it's able to take down Lorma before Lorma is able to reach another foul play. So it's a pretty reasonable spot for Yourcalcprof here. He's down a shield, but he's going to be able to get that back from this Galvantula. Galvantula definitely has to shield a Rock Slide here, and then Yourcalcprof is going to switch back into Shiftry. So Shiftry against Galvantula, this is a matchup that we saw play out in the previous video, or in my video where I battled up against Lorma here. Yourcalcprof is also going to shield the Discharge, but then when Lorma switches into Meganium, this Shiftry has a bunch of energy and should be able to quite easily double foul play this Meganium down. So this Meganium was really not doing anything here. It actually does get off a Frenzy Plant, actually. So one Frenzy Plant is going to deal a decent amount of damage to Shiftry. But Shiftry then gets to farm the Meganium down and fire off additional Leaf Blades at Galvantula. So this was a pretty good spot for the Shiftry to be in against the Meganium, and Yourcalcprof still has 2 Pokemon left. He gets Galvantula's final shield, and then Galvantula has to build up a bunch of energy, but I don't think it's going to be able to go the distance. There's an Excelente discharge there from Lorma, and this Flash Cannon will be resisted, so it shouldn't take out the Galvantula totally, but the Wild Charge, or the discharge here from the Galvantula, I don't think that's going to be enough to take out the Registeel either. Let's see, is it? Either way, yeah, it's not enough, and the Registeel's actually able to lock on, farm down the Galvantula, which is a pretty squishy Pokemon. So that's going to give Yourcalcprof his 3rd win, and now he's up against CuttyWow's Haunter, and this has gotta be scary for the Haunter player. There were a lot of players, like I said, that brought Dark-type Pokemon, which put CuttyWow in a really tough spot here in the Great League. Yeah, Haunter definitely does not really want to play up against a Shiftry here. It takes super effective damage, and the Shiftry is able to gain energy quite quickly. So they are actually going to trade shields here, so that is pretty reasonable for the Haunter, but now we're going to see a Leaf Blade, and this should just take Haunter out and make CuttyWow go into his Meganium. Now, we just saw Shiftry against Meganium, and especially when Shiftry has an energy lead like this Shiftry can probably just shield this Meganium's Frenzy Plant and actually take it out here. So Meganium's going to build a little bit of extra energy, but it gets super punished from that, as then it is going to have to shield. And now I do wonder if we will see the... No, we're just going to see a farm down on this Meganium. The Shiftry doesn't have that much health remaining here, and it fires off a Leaf Blade on the Meganium, and then CuttyWow decides, you know what, I am going to Frenzy Plant. I'm not going to farm you down. So I think it was a CMP tie there that CuttyWow just got a little bit. So I just happened to notice while editing this video that one of these 2 players has push notifications on for my YouTube channel, so I wanted to take a second to remind you to subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified the second one of my new videos drops. Only one of these 2 battlers has notifications, or yeah, we'll say Cutty is maybe on Do Not Disturb. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt there, but if you want to be like Yourcalcprof, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell and enjoy the rest of the video. Then we're going to see a Frenzy Plant on this Registeel before the Meganium perishes, but the Registeel doesn't have to worry about this one, and Yourcalcprof is going to be able to win this one with a shield. It will be Registeel up against Azumaril here, though there is still a Deoxys-Defense form in the back, so I think we will see the Professor switch into that one at some point. Maybe he will wait until after the Azumaril uses some of its energy. So yeah, we might see it use this Hydro Pump here and then switch into Deoxys-Defense form after this Flash Cannon, of course. But yeah, Yourcalcprof was just able to get such a good lead. Here we go. Here's the switch into Deoxys. Was just able to get such a huge lead off that Shiftry. CuttyWow's entire team is super weak to Shiftry. All of his Pokemon lose against it, Haunter especially, Azumaril definitely, and even Meganium, as Shiftry just generates energy and has that coverage move that makes it so good in that grass mirror there. We're going to look at Yourcalcprof's final game here up against Raven, and Raven is running 2 of the same Pokemon as CuttyWow is. And those Pokemon line up pretty poorly against Shiftry. So we have a Meganium lead here, and Raven looks like trying to switch into Azumaril to eat up that foul play, but just couldn't quite get it in time. Then we're going to see Shiftry go for another foul play, and Raven tries to switch yet again, but again is unable to switch in time. So Raven is going to have to use a shield here before switching into Azumaril, and I think he was just frustrated frustrated there. He's just like, you know what, fine, I'm just switching into Azumaril then. But now your Calc Professor can just go for these Leaf Blades, and that is going to deal a bunch of damage to Azumaril. Your Calc Professor is obviously going to shield this Ice Beam here and even up the score 1-1. Before taking down Raven's Azumaril with this Leaf Blade. So the Leaf Blade gets to knock the Azumaril out, and then Shiftry is still kicking here. So Shiftry is going to fire off a foul play at this Registeel, deal some damage to that before your Calc Professor switches to Deoxys-Defense form. So Registeel has a bunch of energy loaded up here, and I do believe we're going to lose Raven's perspective in a second that his recording stopped. But Raven does have a bunch of energy on this Registeel, which could help to even out the game, and he has a bunch of energy on the Meganium as well, actually. Your Calc Professor is able to build to a Thunderbolt there, so Raven is probably going to shield that one. Yeah, so we do see Raven use his last shield and then a farm down on the Deoxys. So now when this Shiftry comes back in, the Registeel is going to be able to use a Flash Cannon, and that is going to get the final shield from Shiftry, who is then just going to brush off the Registeel with a Leaf Blade. So the Meganium should come down and immediately Frenzy Plant this Shiftry, but the Meganium is now going to have to... Oh, it uses an Earthquake. Oh, okay. Well, that was a pretty huge mistake there from Raven. Raven really needed to Frenzy Plant down that Shiftry and then go for an Earthquake on the Registeel. As you can see, it still is able to go for the Earthquake on the Registeel. It had a bunch of energy, and it probably didn't matter because this Flash Cannon is going to take the Meganium out. Yeah, the Meganium would have had to build to another Frenzy Plant, and I'm not sure how close Raven was. I know he had a bunch of energy on that Meganium, but if he Frenzy Plants down the Shiftry, then he might have been able to double Earthquake the Registeel at the end of the match there. I want to bring up all of the players' scores here before we get to our last two games. So on the top of the leaderboard, we have Ryan Swag, and we covered his battles in the first video. And then tied for second place, we have Manaholics and Your Calc Professor featured in this video. With 4 points, we have T Forgery, 3 points, we have myself, and 2 points, we have Lorma. But we have 2 players at the bottom of the standings here with 0 points each. And both of these players are both running pretty similar teams, both running Meganium and Azumaril, so it's probably no coincidence that, you know, everybody just happened to kind of metagame in a way that made it a really hostile environment for these two players, especially CuttyWow, all of these players playing Dark-type Pokemon, and him leading with Haunter. So whichever one of these two players has the worst record at the end of the Great League is going to get eliminated, and there's only 2 more battles. There's only 2 battles that I haven't shown you guys yet, so we're going to look at those now. And first off is Raven up against Lorma. Raven running the Meganium Azumaril Registeel team, and Lorma with Umbreon, Galvantula, Meganium. Let's see who can take it. Now, Meganium versus Umbreon is a pretty even match, as I have said. Both are pretty bulky Pokemon, and we see Raven thinks about switching over into Azumaril to catch this foul play. So that will be pretty good for Raven if they are able to pull it off, and they are here. So Azumaril catches this foul play, so that is a bunch of wasted energy from Lorma, but Lorma now has 2 options to switch into to deal with Raven's Azumaril. So this Azumaril is going to go down pretty quickly to these Frenzy Plants from Meganium. It will be able to fire off an Ice Beam and at least deal some damage to Meganium before it goes And I'm not super sure if Raven had to make the switch there, as Meganium is now able to farm this Azumaril down. So from here, Raven can go into the mirror matchup, which he does, or he could have tested the waters with Registeel then and tried to shield an Earthquake. So he goes for the Frenzy Plant and just immediately takes the Meganium out of there, and then Lorma brings back in the Umbreon. So Meganium lost a little bit of energy, but, you know, I think both of the players are still in a pretty even spot here as we are back in our leading matchup. Because Lorma did lose energy too. Lorma used that foul play on the Azumaril, and then Meganium had to use its energy on Lorma's Meganium. So both of these guys are in a pretty even spot here as we see another foul play come out onto this Meganium. If they are, you know, from a lead perspective without the weird energy losses in the middle there, Meganium should beat Umbreon if the players are shielding. However, if Umbreon doesn't shield, it will just die here. So Lorma is going to still have a shield, but this Meganium is probably going to claim this last shield here now as it is afraid of the Earthquake. It was just a Frenzy Plant, but it could have almost as easily been an Earthquake. We are going to see an additional Frenzy Plant here from Lorma, and I think Lorma made a mistake in this game when he didn't bring in his Galvantula to deal with Raven's Azumaril. And that's because the Sparks here aren't going to deal that much damage to the Meganium, as you can see. Then the Registeel gets to come in, and the Registeel is going to take some discharges, some Excelente discharges, but yeah, it's gonna need about 3 discharges to take this Galvantula down, and it will definitely be able to build up to a Flash Cannon in the meantime. So there's the second discharge, but here comes the Flash Cannon, and that bug is squished. So Raven has a win. So you'd think, okay, this is pretty good for Raven. They can now get out of the Great League and move into the Ultra League. But Raven's final opponent, the rubber match, the game that I have saved here for the end, is Raven up against CuttyWow. Because of how tiebreakers work in the GamePress Go Battle League Gauntlet, CuttyWow only has to win this one game. If CuttyWow can win this one game, both of these players will have 1 point apiece, and the tiebreaker will look at their head-to-head matchup, which CuttyWow won. So all CuttyWow has to do is win this last game here against Raven, and Raven also has to win it to advance onto the Ultra League. Here it is, the rubber match, our final battle of the Great League, Raven versus CuttyWow, Meganium versus Haunter. And since both of these players are playing both Meganium and Azumaril, this kind of feels like Registeel versus Haunter here, and Haunter is going to lead things off with a Shadow Punch bait, as Haunter players love to do, and Raven is actually not going to shield that one, but Raven makes a pretty big mistake here. They go for the Earthquake, and this is an obvious shield by CuttyWow because they have all of that excess energy from just trying to bait with that Shadow Punch. Then CuttyWow actually baits again, and this time does get the shield from Meganium before Raven switches into Registeel. So CuttyWow is just going to be content to farm up energy on this Haunter, shield this Flash Cannon, and then farm up a little bit more energy, and CuttyWow is going to go for a Shadow Punch. Again, one final bait before switching out of this Haunter here so that he doesn't die to the Flash Cannon. So CuttyWow is able to catch the Flash Cannon on their Azumaril, which is fine, and now it is Azumaril versus Registeel here, the Azumaril with a bunch of health left over. This one's pretty straightforward. So a Flash Cannon here from the Registeel, and then I believe we are going to see CuttyWow use an Ice Beam, and that should almost be able to take out the Registeel. It needs a few more bubbles, but the Azumaril gets to build up a little bit more energy even so. So now the Meganium is going to try to farm down this Azumaril, but because of that extra energy, they are going to have to use a shield on this Ice Beam, And Meganium is just going to continue to build energy, but all of that is for naught. CuttyWow brings in his Haunter and just immediately Shadow Punches to clear this Meganium. So Raven has lost a bunch of energy on this Meganium this game due to the Haunter, and now we see the Azumaril come in here. So we're going to see a big Shadow Ball on this Azumaril, and then CuttyWow will be able to switch to his Meganium, and CuttyWow can afford to take an Ice Beam. This Meganium is going to be able to take this Azumaril down pretty easily. I'm not even sure if he will use a Frenzy Plant. He will use a Frenzy Plant just to finish things off here, but that is going to make both of these players tied at 1 point apiece. Raven is going to get, or I'm sorry, CuttyWow is going to get a win just in the nick of time, just when he needs it here up against Raven. So both of these players have 1 point, and like I said, the tiebreaker is their head-to-head battle, which you just watched. So CuttyWow is going to be advancing into the Ultra League. Raven is going to be eliminated. Goodbye. Thank you very much for participating, and thank you to all of these players for participating. Like I said, we got the Ultra League coming up here, and everybody is working super hard to make sure that we can get those battles to you guys ASAP. There's a delay right now in the Go Battle League. Nobody's playing, so we will probably be able to get to you this Ultra League content before the Ultra League is gone from the Go Battle League, maybe even before it's back at this rate. But that's going to be it for me, guys, for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace.